Greetings, loved ones. It's your boy Seth Garu Baxter with the Makers Bar Podcast Bureau. I am so pleased to have you here with us again today. If you are enjoying some of the content that Makers Bar is bringing you and our mission to create 1 million leaders today for tomorrow, please press like, subscribe, and share this content because we are the podcast bureau that's bringing you the most innovative, captivating interviews on the air. And today, I am extremely pleased to have one of those leaders in here. I've been looking forward to this interview for a good while. I know in our conversation before, she inspired me. She gave me warmth. She gave me a smile. I could not get to her fast enough to schedule her. For all of you who are listening, please share this interview and tell people about this magnificent person that we're speaking with today. And of course, the guest that we have on with us today is Dr. Tashion Macon, an MBA, an author. The book in the title itself, Coming in Hot, a blueprint for Black women setting the world ablaze. Dr. Macon has worked in the entertainment industry with the likes of Usher, Babyface, L.A. Reid, along with corporation giants like Wells Fargo, PepsiCo, and AT&T. She is an inspiring public speaker and motivator. She is a spiritual uplifter. She has a comedy program. There is just not enough accolades I can give on what she's doing. And I find it so blessing that she even had the time to speak to us. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us today with Makers Bar. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I am wonderful and grateful to be here, particularly to be acknowledged as one of the 1 million leaders today that's going to lead the change of tomorrow. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Doctor, I can't begin to start off because I would like to really get into it. The title of your new book, Coming in Hot. I can't say extremely how timely that title is, and I'd like to get into the details of that for women, a blueprint for Black women who are setting the world ablaze. But before we did that, I just want to give the audience a little background about you. Would you please tell us where you hail from and give us a little background as to your start and what led you up to the place you're at today?
Oh, sure. I hail from the great city of champions, East St. Louis, Illinois. And what I love about growing up in East St. Louis is when you look at maybe the geographical location or the political narrative or anything like that about the city, you will miss that it has been an incubator, an innovative incubator of artistic talent, athletic talent, and academic talent. In ways that are unprecedented. It's almost like Brooklyn in a different kind of way. Like you think about all the talent that's come out of Brooklyn. There's so much talent that has come out of East St. Louis, the birthplace of Miles Davis, Catherine Dunham, those things, all of the athletes that we have had to play professionally in the NFL and the NBA, the Jackie Joyner Kerseys of the world, track stars. And academically, we had Ambassador Donald McHenry. So we are this trifecta of academics, athletics, and artistic power. That's where I hail from. I moved into working in the entertainment industry right out of college. I was privileged and honored to work at LaFace Records at its pretty early stages, at its inception. I started my career as an assistant to a woman who is now transitioned. Her name was Devette Singletary. And then I began to work directly with a brilliant mind. Her name is Sherry Hughley. She has a book, Peace is the New Lord help me, Jesus. You're gonna have to take that out. But peace is the new progress. Okay. Peace is the new progress. And so I had the privilege to work with her. And my career just continued to move as I went on to work in corporate spaces, work in the how they were leveraging entertainment, how they were leveraging pop culture platforms to move culture, to drive the cultural conversation. I was privileged to be in those rooms and those spaces as that was happening. when the faith sector really came onto the scene, I was privileged to be in that space as well. So I've been grateful to be what I consider in marketplace ministry. Every person is not going to be assigned to the four walls of a church. We have to be out in the marketplace and influence change. And that's where I have seen the divine open doors for me. It's been in the marketplace.
In the marketplace. It's interesting. You talk about the marketplace and the church crossing roads. How did you see that come about? How did you begin to see those roads interchange? Interesting.
Well, it was really obvious for me, Seth. Like we didn't have no garage bands because we had no garages. Okay, so our talent, our talent was affirmed in the faith space, right? Like you think of all the talent that came, Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. Our talent was affirmed in a faith epicenter or a church, right? You learn that you can be in order by saying your Easter speech. You know, I don't know what you came to do. I just came to say Happy Easter Day. And you stand in front of a whole church of people and you get confidence and courage and you get the amens and you can do it. So our doctors and our lawyers, that's where we actually intersected with our brilliance. You're going to find that I'm really committed beyond Black excellence. You're going to hear me talk a lot about Black brilliance because sometimes excellence is rooted in implementation. Brilliance is rooted in intelligence and imagination and ingenuity. And sometimes I think when we just talk about Black excellence, we can condense our brilliance. We can't condense our brilliance in the word excellence. We are actually brilliant and excellent. So my sense is that's where the faith community happened. Like, no, we didn't have garage bands because we didn't have garages. And so in some capacity, the faith epicenter connected with our talents and affirmed them. The civil rights movement erupted from the faith space. And so that's where you see the context of that conversation for me, at least.
I like the faith space. I like that term, the faith space. I haven't heard that often. Now, were you a PK? Were you raised in the church, or did you find the church later, or how did that come about?
I wasn't a PK, but I was raised in the Church of God in Christ. My aunt, her name is Patrice. My aunt Patrice encountered the Church of God in Christ from a standpoint of really acknowledging the spirit of the Holy Spirit inside. And I had always, and my aunt will tell you this, and so will my mother, at a very young age, I was acutely aware of the divine. I could hear the Spirit talking to me very young, somewhere between 5 and 6. I literally could understand a distinctive voice, a difference. And so I grew up in the Church of God in Christ in East St. Louis, Illinois. I went on to college and was also involved in the Church of God in Christ in Carbondale, Illinois, where I went to college. I will say one of my spiritual mothers and mentors, she just transitioned. Her name is Pastor Brenda Holder. She just transitioned to her eternal home. Was very, very encouraging of the non-traditional way the gift was on my life. And I am fortunate that that's all I've ever known. My mother, my grandmother, my Aunt Patrice have always been very encouraging of the non-traditional way the Spirit led my life. And so I'm grateful for that.
I can definitely attest to the non-traditional way, as I was a PK, and we end up getting a reputation. Some of the worst people, some of the worst kids ever, doing our sneaky stuff and all that. The pastors' kids, they used to say, you better watch out for them. But but with that, I have to say, we did have both my parents were ministers, missionaries, and I tended to have an interest in the hippies for Jesus and the Black Israel and the Black Israelites and a number of that. But I too also at a young age, I remember having a sense of the divine. It was extremely very tangible to me, so I can relate to that. Now, that's me as a young man. I am curious. Do you find that some of that is specific to women? That women have that as a kind of a inherent thing to have that divine, or in particular, it's those who are chosen, selected leaders, which I think can be in a conversation in both directions. What would you say?
I think it's a both and proposition versus an either or proposition. And so I will say this, because this conversation said that people are going to be listening like, what is happening? But okay.
That's okay.
But here's the thing. The spirit, I ground my faith in the sacred text of the Bible, right? And I'm a theologian. I'm well studied in it. All of those things. Wisdom is called a she. In every iteration of a faith. It doesn't matter if you're reading the Quran or if you're reading the Pentateuch. The Jewish community, and I was a part of a faith fusion movement meaning a study group in Los Angeles. And I was just fascinated by how, and not just fascinated from a standpoint of like, oh my gosh, but fascinated from a place of honor. That my Jewish sisters and brothers, like they pause on Friday for the woman. Everything stopped. Right? The Jewish mother, and it's really about the feminine in the family, right? The feminine, if you think about the feminine in the family versus culture or ethnicity. Cultures that continue to acknowledge, raise up, and celebrate the divine feminine, they're in good spaces. I would say wisdom is a she. The other thing I would say as a both and proposition is specific to the question. I do think that women, and I would say even people, I think sometimes we live in a separated state of self. And when you're in a separated state from a place of spirit, you are not tapping in to your actual access. Like the real flex is understanding education isn't the great equalizer. The real flex is spirituality is the equalizer. Like no one can stop what you were purposed to be. That's not a conversation with humans. Humans have no authority for that conversation, right? So the real flex is understanding, okay, how do I get clear about who I'm born to be so that I will be that, because purpose does not require permission. In all of these other realms, we're asking for permission. Purpose doesn't require permission. And purpose is not a discussion on an earthly realm. So I think it's a both and proposition. I hope that answered the question.
It actually did. It actually did. It definitely gave me meditative pause. Now I'm curious, since you mentioned those women as mentors for you, so to speak, their guidance and their examples were instrumental in you coming to where you've gone into leadership yourself. Now, did you always specifically look to target just women, or were you looking at be inclusive of men?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm definitely very inclusive of men. I will say that if you ask people very close to me, and there are also men in leadership, Bishop K. Edwin Bryant, Bishop Joseph Walker, the third, Bishop Charles Blake early in my life. They were very supportive, and the current ones see the gifts. Those that I'm not in proximity to as much anymore, they knew the gift early on. Let's just put it that way. But there are those that I am in proximity with more frequently now. And I would say they would even mention that I have a gifting to call out the cave dweller.
Oh, I like that. Can you elaborate on the caveman dweller?
Yeah. I would say for me, again, the sacred text is where I ground anything that I am. And what has been interesting is how I see the sacred text. And it's been this way all of my life. I don't really necessarily see it like in a non-relevant way. It's historical while also being factual for me. And so David David is a cave, like he was a king that ran into a cave, and the people followed him into a cave. And there are a lot of men who are kings inside of a cave,
Mm,
and they're hiding out in a cave.
mm.
And so, because they're hiding out in a cave, I have a gifting, and I've had it for a long time to call out the cave dweller. That's what I call it.
Mm.
And so
I really do.
there are I would say ministry leaders. Now, I will say the distinction set is it's often permitted for men to speak to women because the faith context is over 90%. It over indexes as women. Rarely is a platform given to a woman or a ministry leader like myself to speak to a men's group. You see what
Mm.
I'm saying? Or to
I do.
speak at a men's conference. If it's about business, if you pay attention, oftentimes the platform is yielded to masculinity, except if a woman builds it herself. If a woman
Mm.
builds it herself, then she places herself there. Um, if it's a platform that's a conference that's really a male-centered conference. I'm not talking about a man doing a woman thou art loosed or something like that. I'm saying if it is a male-centered conference, a male leadership conference, rarely is a woman given the platform to actually inspire and ignite them from an
Mm.
intellectual, spiritual, or motivational place.
It's so
Which is what
fascinating.
which is why men can't see themselves following women.
Yep, I think that's very true. I think there's
Mhm.
something even more to explore there in another vein as well. Now, I'm curious, how did this follow you into your corporate world? Because you've worked with some heavy hitters like AT&T and PepsiCo, and you were a woman in leadership positions. How did this translate?
I'm gonna tell you, I've been really fortunate, and I walked through the doors that were open. I was not the person who I realized early on that a door was nothing but a hole in a wall.
Mm,
And when I came upon a door, when I came upon a wall, I would start knocking. It's like when you think about a house and you're really getting ready to redo a house, you knock on the wall to see where the load bearings are, right? And the
mm,
places that aren't load bearing, you can push through them. So that's how I crafted my career. Okay, if I'm hitting too many load bearing places inside of this organization, there's something is in here that's my way through. I did not I moved in I moved in life that my purpose didn't require permission from people. My purpose had a real path, and it was my responsibility to find that path. And
now, I'm sorry, please
no,
continue.
and I think for me, when I say it was my responsibility to find that path, I walked through the doors that were open. I knew that that was one dimension of entry. Um, and either I was going to go up in these places, I was going to go through these places, whatever that was. But I also did not have an emotional attachment of validation.
Mm,
I think that
that's
is a
important.
that's a hindrance that we experience. And I would say from being a black person in America and also being a woman in America. So if you're a black person, period, this narrative that you've got to be twice as good to get half as much, that sends you into these spaces wanting validation or approval. I just did. I don't know where that came from. I just wasn't interested. I wasn't interested because I was crystal clear about as education isn't the great equalizer. That's the big lie. And I I am. It's not just that I have to be twice as good. There are places where I actually am twice as good. Like I'm
Mm.
smarter. I literally am smarter. Like it's not made up. It's not something I'm trying to do. It's the truth. And from that perspective, I don't have to have your acceptance for me to actualize myself.
Mm.
I'm going to actualize myself. And so I have spent and I will say honestly, from my first jobs working in the entertainment industry, particularly as hip hop and R&B was exploding, right? The beauty of coming up in that time was that most people thought and said out of their mouths that the genre did not exist and that it wasn't sustainable, that it never was going to last. Like a lot of people remember that, whether it was when the Beastie Boys came out, they're like, what is this? You know what I mean? They always
Yep.
dismiss innovation, ingenuity, imagination, brilliance. It's always dismissed. It's always dismissed before it can be accepted as something defining of a time. And so coming up in that space with Black men, leaders, CEOs, who really just honestly knew the brilliance of Black women and put them in positions of influence to work. Now, some people want it more than others, meaning they would come into a space and, ultimately I have to be the president here. I wasn't like that. I was like, okay, what is this about? Why am I here? What does this place represent connected to my purpose? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to know? And then that was it for me.
When you were asking yourself those questions, what is this place and what am I supposed to know? How did you end up finding out? Because what I'm hearing you say is knowing your purpose. So you had a spiritual innate thing that was telling you had the purpose, but how did you find out that those spaces or find those answers to those questions?
So I would say for me, I realized a couple of things, that my talent and my title weren't the same thing.
Mm.
And
Oh,
that delinking them was freedom. If you get too tied to your title, you can fool around and not do all the things you're talented to do. And then
mm.
sometimes if you get so locked in your talent, you can't see different expressions of how it can live out, the titles it can take, the paths it can take. So as I became crystal clear about that, for me, I started journaling what I would see, right? If I had an experience that I could not let go of, I paid attention to myself. Like if I had an
Mm.
experience at work that 2 or 3 days later was still sitting on me, I would journal about it, or I would be contemplative or reflective, like what is this revealing? And I wasn't so committed about external things as much as I was committed to the internal awareness.
Mm.
Like what is it revealing to me? Because
So
I
paying
am,
attention,
oh, completely.
paying attention.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm very curious, going back to being the days in the early portion of hip hop and music, how were some of those lessons? Because, well, now, we hear the Diddy stuff and a number of things
Hmm.
that were
Hmm.
supposedly or allegedly happening during those days, and for sure did happen, as we come to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Navigating those roads earlier on in such an experimental industry that was really getting its feet grounded, how did you navigate through some of those pitfalls? Was it through the
So
strict paying attention to self, or?
it was I wish I knew how to talk about, and I think you know this because we had this kind of conversation, is
Yes.
nothing goes wasted. Like
Mm,
everything
that's
has
right. That's right.
purpose.
That's right. That's right.
So
That's
I grew up, my great grandmother owned a juke joint on the Chitlin circuit in a Jim Crow South.
that's right.
So I mean, if you think of Color Purple, the tavern,
Yes.
and that was her juke joint. And this juxtaposition, this struggle between um, righteousness and raunchiness and righteousness and revelry, I'd seen it. I grew up in it, right? So to work in the entertainment industry, one of my great grandmothers was a minister. The other had a juke joint. So here
So
I
you
am.
both.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. So, and my grandmother that was a minister actually owned a like a market. So once she would do her daily selling to people, she would turn the like general store into a church or like a prayer corner, right? So I experienced myself when I got into the entertainment industry. I was very surprised. I thought I was going to Atlanta and I was going to go to seminary school. That's what I thought. I had no idea. I was like, okay, so I'll do this because it intrigues me, and I know I'm gonna get my MBA. But the way it all happened, I couldn't have predicted, but I was prepared.
That's it.
I was prepared because of I could see certain things and go, oh, I've seen this before. If we do not, it takes, I say all the time, destiny is so connected to discipline, you wouldn't believe it. You would not
Oh,
believe
repeat that. Repeat that. Repeat that, please.
destiny is deeply connected to discipline. It's not just about you have the talent, it's how disciplined you are with the gifts you're given, how committed you are. Like LeBron James, he's one of the best to ever do it. The Jordans, all because they keep showing up for practice, they pay attention. A champion isn't the person who's never lost. A champion learns and leverages. You have a Steph Curry who will tell you how many times he kept shooting the three-pointer because he wanted to perfect it. Perfecting it came from practice. Practice is rooted in discipline. So the more I became acutely aware of, and I fine-tuned that, like, okay, I've seen this before. Where did I see this? And what was the outcome? Oh, I don't want that. I'm not heading that direction, right? And also, because I was that way, I had no judgment. I didn't judge people who went down the path because I'm like, oh, maybe they don't have a reference. Or maybe their eyes are not fully opened yet. They're after something traditionally outside of themselves. And a predatory energy, like I don't like to even talk about people, I talk about energy. A predatory energy sees a prey quick.
Ooh,
And
you
so
said some
even
gem.
and so even if a person wasn't really even remotely interested in a road a predator was going to take them down, the predator sees the gap
Mm,
and he sees his prey. And so when you're able to practice and pay attention to, like, okay, I've seen this before. And this, I was like this since I was young. Like my mother will tell you the same thing. It's and for me, it's not something that everyone doesn't have access to inside themselves. It's a practice place. It's a
One
place
might
you
even
gotta.
say,
Mhm.
I just was going back to your word. One might even say as part of that discipline that aids in that
Mhm.
as well. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Now, that would bring me to the title of your book, Coming in Hot. I smile each time I think of that title, Coming in Hot, for a guide for, please say the full title again, Coming in
Yes.
Hot,
A blueprint for
a
Black
blueprint
women. A blueprint for
setting.
Black women setting the world ablaze. I wrote the book that I wish I had at 20 or 21 about corporate spaces and understanding that you can give them a value to validate you, or you can take the power back with the information. So I exist to advocate access and ascension for women, particularly Black women. And I'm interested in Black women counting up the cost and the coins for the career they want. Count up
Mm,
the cost and the coins for the career arc that you want. And understand what that's like. Um, Invite different experiences, global experiences. I'm very well traveled. I'm grateful that I'm very well traveled. I became acutely aware as I traveled that America isn't a place, it's a promise. And often it
mm.
doesn't live up to its promise. But where is a place that can actually support the promise of the life I want for myself? And so I just traveled. And so the book talks a lot about like coming in hot. Most people think the hottest color in the hottest color is red, but it's blue. And it's really debunking these biases and understanding, listen, this data, even with this current election cycle, this data can be daunting, right? But it doesn't have to be defining, it can be directional. And so if we take the data and decide it's going to be directional and not defining, we're now not only empowered and empowered, but we are powering a movement that matters to us. And so, yeah, I think the book has been predictive of what I just think the world saw what we've all known, but didn't want to fully accept. And when someone right after the results were in, and there was a lot of feelings circling and swirling, and I remember just sitting with myself, and I finally landed on what I felt. I was like, listen, this is different. This isn't heartbreak. Like heartbreak, will heal. This is hope break. Like the hope of this country has been broken for women, for Black women. The hope of it. Like we came up with Obama, like think about it, the audacity of hope.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Hmm.
And so that was this steam engine, like, yeah, like historically, and I'm not just talking about Black women. I am talking about Black women, but I'm also talking about women, the women's suffrage movement, women who like wanted rights and dared to do something about it. And then to get where we are and say, wow, hmm, this feels like hope break. And we don't know how to stitch this back together
I was
if
just
we
going
ever
to ask you
can.
that.
Hmm.
I was just going to ask you that. So, come you as an empowerment motivational speaker, what do you see as a way for women to get that back, and not just women, but people who are feeling this? Because I must say, this particular election, it was palatable. The feeling of despair and the and hope break, I think, describes specifically what I saw a number of people feeling. So, what would you say is a prescription for, or at least maybe a guideline if you have one?
I don't think I fully have a prescription. What I will say is this: I have a philosophy. Um, And that philosophy is still rooted in the sacred text, and it says, "Get angry, but sin not."
Mm.
And I think everybody gets to the sin not quicker than to be angry. So in spaces of encouragement I'm making space for righteous rage.
Mm. Can
And
you
that's
elaborate
enough.
on that?
Yeah,
Can you
righteous
elaborate
rage
on?
is it's wrong. We know it's wrong. What was done was wrong. The fact that Black women are dying having babies, and they weren't even dying on a plantation having babies, that's wrong. There's nothing right about that, right? Um, it's wrong for a woman to for a country to lump abortion into a process of a miscarriage, which is what's happening. If a woman's body will not hold a baby and she has to have a DNC, some kind of way, this policymakers have lumped all of that into an abortion, as if a woman carrying her baby would want to lose it. And then to lose it, and then your body, your bloodstream has to become septic. So now we're leaving motherless children. That's wrong. These are women who were married. They weren't out just being promiscuous. They were married. They had a husband. They were building a family. They have children. Now they're dead. So there can be some righteous rage around this. And
And the
and I'm
blue. Oh, sorry.
hmm? No.
I didn't mean to interrupt you again. And your book is a blueprint to help bring some of that hope back. Would you say that's what I would get
Yeah,
from
I
the
think it's
invitation?
yeah, I think it's about understanding that you're going to always be great, right?
Mm.
Don't get connected to your title. Stay rooted in your talent. Your title is something you rent. Your talent is something you own. You can take that
Mm.
around the world. You don't have to. Don't make a title like. Don't make your talent an apartment, right? Like you don't
Mm.
rent that. That doesn't belong to someone else. That belongs to you. And you can take that wherever you go. You can leave a title like a rug in an apartment. Let them have it. You know what I mean? And so even
Yes.
that for me is righteous rage. Like decide if this doesn't work for me, I get to say it doesn't work for me. But I can't create space for another path until I tell myself that truth. When I tell myself that truth, like from a righteous rage perspective, this isn't right for me. This place doesn't feel right to me. Then all of a sudden, right will show up. And then I can take the path of right for me.
Now, it can. I'm curious. While we're on there, how does a Black woman today find her talent? I would sometimes a blueprint is so. Here's kind of a diagram. Here's how you do that. So now you were innately aware. You had that sense. Now, in working with young people through the years, there
Mm-hmm.
was young Black girls I would work with in my youth work, and some of the challenge for them was, what am I good at? And that was now I often go in my interviews and in your and my conversation, we've had mentors in our life that have been instrumental in helping us discover some of our talents. What would you say, young Black women today, how do they discover their talent? Journaling sounds like one of the good ideas to help get some idea, but if you can give a few examples on how young Black women today can discover their talents or their worth.
I think it's journaling. I think meditation is helpful. I think when you get quiet and practice asking the divine the question, like you may not hear
What
the
is that
answer the first
question?
time. The question is, who am I born to be?
Mm.
Not what am I born to do? It's not the doing, it's the being. And if we can make space that the message from the divine may not be like a microwave, it may not come in 10 seconds, but you keep asking the question, and then it's going to appear. And I know it sounds like, oh, people keep saying it's going to appear, but it will. The other thing I believe is important is that you get in community.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by being in community as a young person, whether it's volunteering somewhere, um, you got to get out of yourself sometimes to see yourself. Show up in a different space, right? And so as I've served, whether it was feeding the homeless or, you know, packing up clothes that were nearly new or never worn and donating them, I have an expectation of supernatural encounters.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go to the Goodwill to drop something off, and I may be drawn to walk in the store or to buy. I don't know, but I stay open to, I have an expectation of supernatural encounters in my life.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important. I think
And
that's extremely important.
mhm. And I think a lot of times what we call or classify as low self-esteem, Seth, is really low expectations.
Mm. Oh my goodness, talk about that.
You know, a lot of times we'll say a young man has low self-esteem or a young lady has low self-esteem. But if you turn that thing on its head, really, a lot of times it's that their expectations are low. And it may be environmental. It may be I'm in a community or I'm around scenarios that feel hopeless or feel like I don't know my way through. I don't know how I'm going to get up and get out of this. You know what I mean? I don't even know who to
Yes.
talk to, right? You have shame. You have expectation that low expectation. Sometimes that's rooted in shame. The amount of courage and chutzpah it takes to be unhoused and graduate from high school. You have young people who are unhoused and they are graduating from high school and getting full rides to college. The level of chutzpah that takes, the level of courage that takes. And to know that sometimes they're lonely. They're not even in community because of shame. They don't want anybody to know that they're unhoused. But sometimes the gift isn't the unhoused. It isn't you giving a gift to the unhoused. It's the unhoused giving a gift to you.
Mm.
It can be a transference of power. That what you have, what you may have that you gain so easily, you understand the gift of effort. And in community, you learn there's a reason I need this. And the unhoused may understand there's a reason I need to know a little bit of ease. Like this person needs to know a little bit of effort. And we cross paths for that supernatural exchange. And one day, ease is going to hit my life. And one day, the need for effort is going to hit theirs.
And you say a big part of that is to not have low expectations, but to have high expectations.
Mm-hmm. Have an expectation of supernatural encounters.
Have an
Have an
expectation.
expectation that you can meet the divine any day of the week, in any person, in any scenario. And even when you feel, and I've had challenges, and I don't want to present like I haven't. I've had deep challenges and deep hurts, and I've experienced deep betrayal. And I've had to, in one period in my life where I was in such deep betrayal, I literally had to fast. I had, because I felt my hope like being hijacked. And it was going to change who I was if I didn't. Fasting is self-discipline. So I had to pull myself back because I saw myself getting away from myself. You get what I'm trying to say?
I do. I do.
So I had to fast. And in moments where I experience deep disappointment, deep despair, deep betrayal, I have a practice. And sometimes that's what I need some sacred self time. I have to go sit with myself. I have to go do an archaeological dig around my own stuff so that I can come back whole, because living fractured is not an option.
So some of the words you would say I would take from your book also are journaling,
Mm-hmm.
having higher self expectations to have spiritual encounters,
Mm-hmm.
making self time for oneself. And I think one of the things that's undervalued, I think is innately there is a community with Black women like Black men have, but in seeking out more community, those seem like a formula for success to give as encouragement to young Black women today. Those are things to do to say, have high self expectations. And here are some of those things you can use as tools. Use journalism, have some meditative time, expect the spiritual encounters, build community, be around other women who are going places. It brings me to this one particular, I worked with young people for about 15 years. And I remember in that group of young people, we had the socioeconomic space was big.
Vast.
I had vast, multi-millionaire kids. And then I had kids who, I had a couple of families, and they won't mind this because of the story. A couple of kids who, two of the young ladies that were with me, their mother was ex-drug addict, and the uncle was the pimp. They were living out of a garage. And I had taken an executive directorship at this PAL center in addition to my youth work. And the three young ladies came in there, and, you know, the other kids embraced them completely. But when the young women came in there, it was clear to see that they didn't have a great deal of understanding of how to be with the other kids, because they had never experienced family connectivity, being able to wake up with breakfast and lunch as a guarantee. And then if their uncle was already pimping out the mom, how to do this. But they stuck with it. Those three young ladies stuck with the program, and the community that built around them with the other young people was a motivator for those young girls to shoot forward and to look more for themselves. And it was the experience of that community with constant support of saying, okay, we go home back to this home that is not a home, it's a garage, but we have this other community here that's encouraging us. Do you know the two older sisters one ended up becoming a successful insurance salesperson. She went to college and became a successful insurance person. And her sister became a physician assistant. And they had no money. Their younger sister, I still want to find out, but they had no money. And so I had talked, when I caught up with them years ago, and I would say their names, but I don't know if one of them should probably get mad at me.
Right. So don't do that.
Yeah, I won't. But when I caught up with her, and she said, you know what? And what was so instrumental to me, white, Black, and Hispanic were all together, and having them all tell us together. And it was the Black girls that were in our group set that kept saying, just keep it going, keep it going. You have more that you can do. And it was that constant support, and knowing they had the community there, that anytime they came to the PAL Center, they were going to have support and community. So that, I think that community portion of it is extremely important, as far as having a group of people that are saying, like you said, check in yourself. You have this inside of yourself. And I think that's an important portion of what community means, to the support of other people. But I think in that, you have to have the thing that you said, which I think is extremely valuable. Don't equate the title with your talent.
Yep.
That I think is so valuable here. So I want to share that, because you are saying a prime example of what happened with those young women. Now, I'd be curious what your thoughts are in talking about women in the entertainment industry and in leadership positions, considering the climate we're at now. Successful women like yourself are the trailblazers. Your book is a prime example of the trailblazers. What would you say, considering the climate now, young women who are looking to build an entrepreneurial mindset like you have, build a successful career like you have, who are specifically interested in the music industry, and I come from that as well, what would you tell them to encourage them to move forward? Is that a career they should go into? What would you say?
I believe that if you're called to that from a purpose place, you have to follow it, right? I think the beauty of being called to music, entertainment, or art is that the world is bigger. The the ability to have user generated content, different platforms that exist now, the gate has collapsed. You can go directly to a fan base. If you are called to be in a leadership role, then you have to see the artist. The artist has to see themselves as an enterprise beyond just an artist, right? Meaning, you'll talk about having a manager and things like that, but really you are a product, and you have to have a marketing product. You have to have a project manager. You have to have, are you guys meeting weekly or bi-weekly to talk about the strategy of the product launch, the product brand, where you're going to be, how you're going to move the product, how it's packaged, how it's positioned, its pricing, its competitive analysis, its comparative analysis, its competitive advantage. What is the value proposition that you offer that is different than anyone else? And I think that work is sometimes where the artist may not put as much intention because the gift is so big. You got to guide the gift, though. You got to guide the gift. And in guiding
That's
the
part of
gift,
that discipline, isn't it? That's part of the
yeah,
discipline as well, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I think when you see talent like Usher, who's in Vegas and always had that vision for himself, he also played the club with 20 people in the room, right? So he had to have a blueprint for where he wanted his career to go. Of course, being on the world stage or being uh, classified in the likes of a Michael Jackson, that was, of course, that's his big dream. That's his North Star. But what are all the rungs on the ladder to that? And I think sometimes we are not being as disciplined about that part. And I think
How
the
would
way I
you?
would say that is you write the vision and make it plain. We're really good
That's
at
it.
talking.
That's what it is.
We're really good at talking the vision. We're really good at telling the vision, right? We're really good at partying with the vision. But to write the vision, and I'm not talking a vision board, because that's a picture of the vision. That's painting the vision. Write it down. Like literally get disciplined enough to sit down and say, in this amount of time, I desire to accomplish boom, 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 boom.
There you go. That's the stuff I was trying to get to as well. Now, and so part of the practice of being disciplined is to write it down. Maintain a regular habit of being in contact with your journal to say, this is what I want to see materialize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I get that.
Because when you're really intentional about manifestation, you actually defeat manipulation.
Oh my goodness. Say that again, please. Say that again.
When you get very intentional about manifestation, you defeat manipulation because you can't be manipulated off of that which you're choosing to manifest. It's clear.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So
Yes.
nobody can manipulate you off of your path.
Would you say also, I'm curious, this brought up an interesting question. Intuitively, I think oftentimes it's called sixth sense or an intuition. And I was just listening to this speaker that was saying, when you feel immediately you don't trust someone, don't. And so is that what you're also saying? That is when you, for manipulators that might come into your energy zone or your success zone, so to speak, and you encounter those people where you get that feeling, is because I think sometimes I might be too much of an optimist that I say that's what used to get me in trouble, trusting too easy. But I think I've been hearing that lesson repeated. Trust that instinct that is, if you see someone that you get a feeling of, this is a manipulator or this is a person that wants to steal some of my energy. You would also advise it's worthy to trust that or talk about that a little.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm an optimistic realist, right? I understand that there are vampiric spirits. There are vampiric energies. There are succulent energies. There are leeches. There are leech energies. And all they draw, draw, draw. They don't deposit. And there are seasons in your life that, people will pull on that. And then there will come a time when spirit will say that door is closed. But how it happens is traditionally, and Seth, you and I had this conversation. There will be a space where it was really supposed to be an exchange, but when it became your turn, they had nothing to deposit. So that's how
Mm.
you knew they came to take,
Yes.
because spirit opened up a space where they could actually deposit, and they didn't. So you have to
Mm.
see that for what it is.
Yes.
Feel what you feel about that. There is there is a good in goodbye.
I like that. I like that. Oh, Doc, you got me off guard with that one. You got me off guard with that one. Oh, I didn't
It
expect
is.
that one.
There
Oh,
is a
boy.
good in goodbye. It
Oh,
really
Doc,
is.
oh, you got me with that one. I think that's going to be one of the priceless gems of this whole conversation, too. There is a good in goodbye.
Yes. Take it forward.
Yes. Yes. I
Take it
really like
forward.
that. I really like that. Oh boy, that tickled me. I got to tell you. What's the one word? Oh, Doctor, you got me off guard. Oh man, you got me off guard with that one. What's the one word you hate? What's the one word you hate?
The one word I hate.
Yes.
What's coming up for me in this season is sacrifice. That's the word I hate.
Mm. Elaborate, please.
Um, what's coming up for me is the reason I am grappling with sacrifice is I, for me, what I'm currently experiencing in this season is feeling like a yet again, right? Sacrifice is a stretching. It's always a stretching, and having this sense that I got to do that yet again. And so, my current affirmation and mantra is see sacrifice as surrender.
Mm.
See it as surrender. Put a new spin on it. Open up space in yourself. Create additional capacity
Mm. Oh wow.
to yield it at a higher level, whatever
Yes.
the thing is. And it reminds me, a friend said to me, we were having this conversation, and I was talking to her about a deep disappointment that I was experiencing. And she said to me, it's like that picture when the little girl is holding a teddy bear, and God, or the God of your understanding, has a bigger teddy bear behind its back. But you're holding on to the concept or the imagination or the hope or the idea of the thing that you feel like
Mm.
you got to sacrifice. Like, I got to give that up too, right? Like, wow. Like, but yielding that, you don't know the bigger thing that's coming, the more beautiful thing that's
That's
coming.
right.
It just, we can get to a period of, and whether you call it sacrifice or stretching, it's like believing again, right? Like if you've gone through a divorce once or twice, and you got to believe again, because you don't, you, a person may not want to be single the rest of their life or not be in companionship or partnership, but something has to heal for you to believe again, for you to stretch
Yes.
again. And you can feel like, well, damn, I'm sorry. But that's how you feel, right? You can
That's
feel
right. That's right.
like Esther Roll on Good Time. Damn, damn, damn. Oh, you can feel like that. You can feel like that. Like I remember watching that and I didn't understand. Like, why is she this intense? But then you can feel like that, like, oh my goodness, again, right?
Yes.
Again. And so that's what I'm currently workshopping in within myself. Just wanting to make sure that I just speak the truth to it. This
Yes.
sacrifice, or this season of sacrifice, is 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 a stretching that I didn't anticipate. So I am giving myself the space to feel that. And
Mm,
I'm asking my sacred self to also open up the space for me to
mm.
surrender that,
I
so
really
that I
love
can
that.
so that I can soar forward.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, nothing is lost. And if I
Mm.
really believe that, this is important for me to workshop.
Nothing is lost. You have dropped so many beautiful, beautiful quips. I keep trying to take mental notes to remember them because I think sometimes in those quips, and especially the way the context you put them in, they're so filled with depth. And I don't know that people value that sometimes, and then others who really get it. And I just love how many of those are so descriptive of soul understanding of life, soul
Thank you.
understanding. And that's what I like to call it, where you get those little nuggets of gems that you've dropped in our previous conversation and here that I want people to pick up on because nothing's ever lost. And I just find that completely a wonderful thing to say and inspiring and a good place for me to say again, your book, Coming in Hot, a blueprint for Black women setting the world ablaze. Where can they find that? Where can they purchase the book at?
I'm so grateful that the book has become an international bestseller. Um,
Whoop, whoop. Oh,
thanks,
yeah, Doc.
thanks, thanks to um, a tribe of women. I'm grateful. Those I know, those I don't know. It's available on Amazon.com. And and I'm asking, if you purchase the book, please write a review, because a lot of people have purchased the book and they'll send me something on Instagram, direct message, which I respond to. But it moves the book on Amazon. The reviews help other people find it without, um, it'll just, the algorithm will push it forward. So it helps other women like ourselves that need a little hope and know that hope still floats. It helps move it upward.
May I ask you? I guess I should have asked this. Now, would if a man wanted to purchase this book, would it be? Is this specifically where the information in the book is more directed to women, where a man could not get
Yes.
anything from it?
Oh, no, 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 no. I say it's for men who love Black women.
Oh,
It's if
oh,
you got a sister, if you got a daughter, if you simply love Black women, you're married to Black women, and this book will actually give additional depth and context to what she's experiencing inside of corporate America when she leaves her home,
oh,
in
fantastic! Oh,
ways
fantastic.
in ways she may not be able to actually tell you, because when she comes home, she's not trying to be she's a different kind of CEO at home than the one she has to be. And so this book, if you're married to a Black woman who works in the marketplace, it's a great book. If you leave, I've said to ministers, to preachers, if you 90% of your congregation is women, a lot of them go to work. That's how they give tithes and offerings. You need to read this book, because
Mm,
what they're experiencing, to even get the resources to give to advance the kingdom, it's a lot.
yes. So the book again by Dr. Tashion Macon, Coming in Hot, available on Amazon. Please leave a review, as I will also ask you to do for Maker's Bar if you enjoyed our
Yes.
content and our incredible guests. I can't say this beautiful lady, I am floored by her wealth of knowledge. I would like to go on or even ask Doctor to come back so we can have a part two
I
because
absolutely will.
good because I want to tell the audience she and I have had a conversation before and she just gave you a tidbit of her humor, her brilliance, her depth, and I want to share with so many people why I've been looking so forward to this because she should be on, well, she is on the world stage as it is, but if I can give more insight in a second in another interview, I will certainly do it because I think there's The timing is right considering recent events, and the encouragement and hope you inspire, the leadership that you are an example of is so invaluable, so valuable that I can't express it enough. So, Doctor, truly with a humble heart, I thank you so much for being with us today on Maker's Bar, being our guest, and especially being here with me. And I will also say, it won't be, there's not necessarily a good and goodbye for me in saying goodbye to you today.
We're going to say see you later. Seth, we're going to say see you later. We're going to say we'll chop it up later. We're going to chop it up later.
I like that. I like that. And to all you who are Maker's Bar audiences, please continue to press like, subscribe, and share this content. Please spread the word about Dr. Tashion Macon and her book. You can reach her. Where would you like them to contact you, if anything, if someone wants to reach you?
Yes, it's Dr. Tashion Macon, PhD on Instagram, or it's Tashion Macon on LinkedIn. And I am open to supporting women's movements, speaking in places, as well as men empowerment movements. Holla at your girl.
That's right. That's right. And then I was saying, I've been saying in the ending of my broadcast, the Love-olution is the revolution, and it begins with you. Let's begin this Love-olution. Family, I love you and God loves you too. Peace, and until next time. Doctor, you know we're going to see each other later.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to send you a note, Seth, to just get a quote from you to put on some of our stuff. And then I want to have a separate conversation with you. I'll get some time to discuss some other opportunities.
I really like that, and actually, I want to put some bugs in your ear later too. Not in that little boy way, putting bugs that crawl, but
okay.
We'll get on here and start laughing too much.
Okay, thank you
so much, Doctor.
Okay,
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to it. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.